First and foremost, one thing about this book, linear thinking is an option. To think linearly is one way of thinking. There are other ways of thinking, creative, analytical. There's just a whole bunch of other ways of thinking. So we will beat over our head with linear thinking. What that is a podcast within itself, the pros and cons of linear thinking only, or how society and the norm is to say linear thinking is the way to make money. It's how you have to give information if you want to be wealthy, or if you want to move the dial, if you want something to go from here to here. It's a sequential type of thinking, and I get that, and that's very important, and I will master that as I'm in a journey of focusing. I say drinking from a straw. When you're literally thinking, it's one stream. It's like sipping from a straw instead of ramming down a sponge and just getting all types of information, which is how neurodivergent brains are. You're more like a sponge than a straw. So we have to learn how to drink from a straw. So that's my analogy of linear thinking that I've had. And criticism to me is very, very important. I thrive on that. Like, it's important because being neurodivergent, there's a principle that is very important to people who think like me, but I'm only going to speak from my perspective, right? The momentum is better than no momentum. Just naturally, I do not surround myself with people that agree with me. People who are in my private circles are kick-ass. They're thought leaders. They're thinkers. I don't feel comfortable with people who agree with everything I say. That does not make sense to me. Just being true and just being transparent. And it's almost like the information that we have has to move. So we can have the same mission. This is why I love working with Black women particularly, because we all can have the same mission. The same mission, know where we need to go, but have 10 women, 10 different views on how to get there. And all of those views need to get unpacked. Even with women in general, if you can hold space with me, show up how you show up, and have authentic, transparent conversation, then we can definitely get down. Action is more important than inaction. And I find that when people have different views, the ball keeps rolling. And that's all I have to say with that. So I like moving information. And if moving information means that you disagree with me and then we have 20 more minutes of a conversation, that to me is so impactful. So I don't tend to converse with people who have the exact same view. I don't even know, that doesn't even resonate correctly. It's not that I'm out there to argue, but I do love a great discussion. I have my friend from Ireland who is a kick-ass writer. She did some edits, so there is some spelling, there is some grammar that I have to correct, which is cool. Some phrases that I use, I just think that's just a cultural thing. Like, there's some slang that I used in writing this book that is a little different. If I want to, if you want to broaden, the audience and so on and so forth, you have to break it down a little bit more effectively. I wrote the book as a neurodivergent, so it is not really about, I'm sorry, I had to read a text. It's not really about, well, it is about, but what I'm trying to say is it's definitely about how my brain works. So again, there's a lot of topics in here that I think are extremely important, not only to me, but for the culture. To add value is really the primary reason I wrote this book. Because let's face it, a lot of this ADHD stuff is just recycled information. A lot of it is already just stuff that people look at what other people are doing, and then they use it in what it is that they're doing. And what I appreciate about this book is that this is a different paradigm. This is a different level. This is a conversation that has been left off of the table for years. So when we're talking about, you know, agency, and we're talking about, you know, being able to level the playing field, even exceed the playing field, because I believe the value that this book adds, everyone's not going to see. That's just ludicrous to think everyone's going to like the book. I wrote this book basically like, fuck it. This is the book that I'm writing. This is the book that is true to my heart. And the reason why it really took me so long is because I don't think linearly. I want to talk about, I do want to talk about context. I do want to talk about the timing of things. I want to talk about when thoughts were, what impacted my thoughts. I want to talk about how it carried me through as a youth, and how I use it when I have greater conversations with, you know, people, parents, corporations, whatever it is. So yeah, so if you are looking for a linear book, you have to understand that this book is not it. Now, when I go back into this book, as I am currently doing, I'm going to write in more individual books, like the topics and a ton of new concepts. Because in order to create necessary change and move the dial, to create the books that you want to read, to create the books that don't have a ceiling. Like I find sometimes if you're diagnosed with something, sometimes, you know, you're saying that the person has a problem or something needs to be treated. And I'm just like, let's expand what this looks like. I mean, we are going to be diving in, okay? Disrupting. Like I said, it's a book that disrupts. It's a holistic book, so it also heals. And we all need that. We know, I mean, look, we know as parents that the best avenue, and if you don't know, you need to know, right? The best avenue is to ask other parents. The best avenue is that when you have a child who is going through something, we do this all the time as parents, whether it's illness, whether it's disabilities, or, you know, physical limitations, we can become our own saviors. We become our own fixers, and no one can take that away from you, because you want to make sure at the end of the day that you are solving the problems that need to be solved right now. You're not waiting for doctors. You're not waiting for approval. You're not waiting to be validated. We're going to put wheels on it, and we're going to keep it moving. We're going to make wheels out of, you know, thread spools. We're going to, you know, throw some wire on it, some Band-Aids, some sticky tape, and we're going to make the thing do the thing, right? So I'm quite sure most parents who had challenges like that, who did not take no for an answer from doctors and stuff like that, so who hit the glass ceiling and was like, nah, this is not enough. You're going to figure that out, doctors, or you're going to figure that out, therapists, what have you. But meanwhile, I have to answer to my kid right now. We have to make sure that we find a solution, even though it may be a temporary solution or it may be a long-term solution. But we're all about solutions right now. And again, that's what, you know, ADHD-ish is about. We're about solutions. We're going to limit complaints. And if a complaint cannot be turned into a solution, or a complaint has to be turned into, here's the complaint, here's the solution. Here's some things that may or may not work. Let's test it to find out how we can do what we can do better. It's not about the ADHD-ish book. It is about the greater conversation that comes from these talking points in this book. So no, it's not just about, my focus is, you know, primarily this book is centered on children, primarily, like just being able to be more effective in the conversation. I'm just reading from the book. To give children the time and space required to fully develop their faculties, to cook through, to blossom, to pour into their becoming by cultivating the necessary paradigms they need to truly exist. To have children truly exist is giving them the tools, cultivating the tools that they need to exist. I'll read a little excerpt. If paradox is about things that don't seem connected but really are, then being neurodivergent is about connecting more of those things. In return, this adds more value to the world, making connections that add value and creates transformation. So this is powerful for me because this is where it connects to historically how people show up differently who are neurodivergent. And this is why I'm going to have parents on this podcast moving forward. And I'm particularly going to have Black parents on this podcast to talk about their Black children and how Black children historically have been condemned who had ADHD because it became a behavioral thing. And behavioral thing is has consequences. It's criminalized. So we